We're back. It's been a while since I uploaded a YouTube video. When I told you before, I professionally work as an engineer. I'm somebody who does what he loves and loves what he does. I love building things. It's always been my dream job since I was a kid. And so, you know, a lot of the times when it comes to solving problems or building things or working on projects, I'll have several projects lined in a row. And whenever I get stuck on working on something, I'll move to another project. But when I run out of things to do for all the projects and I get unanimously sucked on whatever I'm working on, and I just don't feel like working on any of the projects, it's like, you know what comes up to my mind? I'm going to make a YouTube video. Because let's be honest here, a lot has gone down since I uploaded my last video in early July. Things have gone down. It's kind of crazy. I made several predictions in all of my last videos before I uploaded my previous set of videos like a little while ago, okay? You know, I talked about what Trump was going to do geopolitically. I talked about how it wasn't going to work. I said that what's going to happen is that the American ruling class is going to get arrogant and start cannibalizing its own people. It's because they cannot compensate for the fact that they can't compete against China without adopting something and recognizing that they themselves are the problem when it comes to American society. You know, I also said a lot of things have gone down. I want to talk about what's gone down over the last month is because there's a couple things I'd like to address. So, namely, Trump had a meltdown on social media about the Epstein files. As soon as he got into power and people started asking about the Epstein files, Pam Bondi had the client list on her desk and she was, had her gun locked and loaded and was ready to prosecute and indict some pedophiles. And then all of a sudden, oh, nothing. In fact, Trump was pressuring her and on the entire Republican Party to forget about the Epstein files, the client list that, they talked about to get themselves elected into office in the first place. Why? Because Trump was good friends with Epstein. And people have been saying that for ages. People had said that Trump and Epstein had known each other since the 2000s. Even Trump had said some compliments about Epstein. They knew each other. And so, it's a shocker that they were able to just basically, I'm going to be honest, I don't think anybody bought it. I think everybody knows Trump is a part of that pedophile cult after that, meltdown on Truth Social. But, the thing is that that quickly, right? He hung himself in the court of public opinion about diddling kids and working with whatever it's called, Epstein. That being said, within 2 weeks, because it's only been a month and a week or two since I uploaded my last video. Oh, now all of a sudden, Collective Shout wants to ban certain video games. On top of that, there have been multiple legislative attempts within the EU, starting with the UK, to require mandatory identification to use and access the internet to protect the children. Okay? 2 weeks after Trump and the current administration that turned into a Zogbot machine that just basically sucks the dick of the establishment, all of a sudden, we need ID verification to protect the children. Let's get this straight. This concerted effort by the deep state, the same people who diddle children in their mansions behind closed doors, that, want to have their privacy with their 10-foot hedges to protect their mansions while they diddle kids, who want to erase your privacy, who want to make you rent for the rest of your days. These people are now saying, think of the children, and that's why you need to lose your privacy to protect the children that they probably diddle in the first place. Yeah, pedophiles are telling you to give up your internet privacy to protect the children. That's where we're at. And it seems like they're getting some success. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes on my channel as well. But they come in here and try and get ID verification. I'm going to be honest, if my channel gets deleted, I'm just going to move to Nick Fuentes' website, Cozy TV. Because ironically enough, I'd rather just fucking, hang out on a site that has Nazis but allows freedom of speech and privacy to upload content and have open discussion than this gay shit. This is retarded. Unironically. The only reason that they want to basically... You ever notice it with employers? Because there's a very explicit reason why they want to monitor everyone's social situation. Because I've had to deal with HR departments, even in my own workplace, being like, do you have any social media accounts? And I, of course, always say no, is because the fact is, it's just, why would you ever give up private information to the HR department who's just going to use it against you? Right? There's no reason to share private information with people who have no relation to what you do professionally, right? Because they like to be able to have that ledge over people to control them, to crush dissidents. They don't want people having different opinions. And so that's why they want ID verification. And another reason is that if you get too out of line on criticizing the establishment, or you point out you point out any of the Epstein stuff, you know, they're just going to ban you. And since you connected your ID, your real ID to your, you know, online presence, they can just terminate you and you'll never have a voice ever again. They can just silence you forever, you know, on social media. And so, you know, that is the state of things in which we're going to. All that has transpired in about a month and a week since I've uploaded the last video. It just kind of baffles me how fast it just kind of transpired. And what does it have to do? It's about covering the asses of deep state pedophiles who want to diddle children, and they get to keep their privacy, but everyone else have to give up their privacy, is because the fact is, you know, nobody else is allowed to call these deep state pedophiles what they diddle children. That's the insane thing that baffles me. And yeah, people are opposing it, and rightfully so, because the fact is, this is insane. Yes, deep state pedophiles are telling us we have to give up our privacy to protect the children. From who? The deep state pedophiles? Okay, if that was the case, you know, why don't they release the client list? It's funny, is because I've debated some conservatives about that client list, and now they're all saying that there's no such thing as a client list. That never expanded, their little trafficking ring never expanded beyond Maxwell and Epstein, which is just so patronizingly insulting, because she's in jail for that, and I pointed that out. But the worst part is that, you know, Congress actively blocked her from speaking before Congress because they were afraid of her running her mouth and possibly exposing people who might have been in that ring. She's a loose end. And so they're going to give her a pardon for hush-hush because she'll bring every single one of them down. That's the insanity of how deep this pedophile cult goes. And so the reason they need this surveillance system is to basically keep people in line. It's amazing to me, right? It's amazing to me. That's why I titled this video. That's right. We all have to be surveilled. We have to put our identities on the risk, you know, threaten stalking, harassment, and intimidation, you know, by people, you know, by putting our ID, like, right on the risk. But these people, these deep state pedophiles that diddle children in their McMansions, they're allowed to keep their privacy so they can diddle children? That's the insane thing. Yes, that the surveillance state only exists to protect those in power. That's the insane thing I've come to realize, and that's what I wanted to talk about in this video, more or less. I just wanted to rant about that, is because it's just kind of absolutely baffling to me that it's something that most people don't realize, because they think that the surveillance state is all present, and it's not. Okay, there are rules to the surveillance state. You know, I've seen people do some really evil things, you know, and they bully some mentally retarded person on the internet to suicide, and the surveillance state does nothing. Okay. You know, it happens every once in a while. And so the thing is, surveillance state, with its infinite eye-seeing powers and its a gorillion NSA backdoors, you know, just is somehow helpless and powerless to such a situation. It just can't do anything. Oh, but when you criticize the wrong people, all of a sudden, you know, they can basically look into your personal life and intimidate, you know, you and your family. That's the insane thing that comes to my mind. But the surveillance state is selective. The surveillance state exists to protect the people in power. It kind of always has been. You know, it's no different than in the medieval era when, you know, the guards, you know, didn't really do anything to stop crime. They're there just to protect the crown. Like, that's all they're there for. They're there to keep the order in place, but they'll turn a blind eye to anything that's criminal. Like, that's just kind of the interesting thing that most people don't realize. But, you know, so a lot of people are kind of getting awakened up to that fact of reality that the surveillance state isn't indeed selective. It can police and monitor everything you say on the internet, and like if you say the wrong words to the wrong person, then the FBI is going to show up at your front door to tell you can't say that, or maybe even file formal indictments, because they have AI monitoring tools that can basically spot your ass a mile away. But they just can't find the Epstein client list, and then they'll probably gaslight you saying it never existed in the first place. That is the insanity of the people that we're dealing with, that I've come to realize. I compared in previous videos that America was like the decaying Roman Republic. And honestly, it's living exactly up to what I said it was. You know, the Roman Republic in its final days before Caesar marched on Rome, you know, you had senators openly killing people and gaslighting people about what they were doing. You know, the degeneracy that existed within the Senate was just rampant in public at that time. And, you know, the Senate thought they could get away with it indefinitely, but God sends a correction. You know, there always is a correction to these sorts of things, because eventually what happens is that they get so arrogant and full of themselves that they think that they're beyond reproach, that nothing is going to happen to them. But that's not true. History has shown time and time again, whether you talk about Weimar Germany, there's always a correction in one form or another. And it doesn't even have to just be explicitly fascism or that matter, but some correction does come where, the ruling class does get its reckoning. I personally do believe in a God. I do believe in a will of the world. And so the thing is that like eventually, and just based on my own observation of history, it's kind of funny. If you were to talk to any of these ruling class pricks, right, and you were to tell them that, history has shown that this corrects, right? And this is the logical argumentation that the ruling class gives for itself every time, because I've debated these people plenty of times. Like, there's always going to be a ruling class. There's always going to be an elite. And, they'll use that as like the self-evidency argument. I call it the self-evidency argument is because what they use to justify the now, they'll use to justify forever. But history doesn't work that way. Things change. And that's the thing that they should realize, that things always do change. But the thing is, they'll use the self-evidency argument and say, like, well, there's always been a ruling class and elite, so, therefore I should diddle kids in my, 6-story mansion, and, you can't stop me, and you have to give up your privacy because it's futile to try and change it. It's the natural order, bro. No. What's the natural order is when the ruling class gets too arrogant, because I'm an elitist. I have no problem with the ruling class. I have no problem with a section of society leading the vast majority of society, because I think the majority of people are fucking stupid. Okay, that's my take. I am an elitist prick. I don't hide that fact. But the thing is people have a tolerance for this sorts of thing, and it's a tolerance that once it goes past its extension, people do some very evil things to correct it. And so I do personally think that in one form or another there will be a correction. It's just the thing is, it just takes the ruling class to become too arrogant to realize that, and the right person to seize the opportunity. I can't stand these fucking people. I would do unspeakable evil to the ruling class as it stands today. Things I would probably get banned off of YouTube for saying. But, that's neither here nor there, is because I'm not looking to get my channel banned just yet. It probably will be eventually. But the thing is, I would do unspeakable evils. But if it won't be me, somebody else will. Like, that's just an inevitable fact of realities. Because the thing is that, you're not internal, okay? If you think people are going to idly accept that you're making them renters in their own country, aliens in their own country, while you diddle kids in your mansions, okay? While you gaslight them, you strip them of their privacy, their rights, their ability to have any set of autonomy. You strip them away of the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, the right to be left alone, the right to own a house, the right to settle down and have a family, just so you can have your mansions and diddle children in your little pedophile rings? I'm a believer in God, and I do believe God punishes the wicked. What do you think the penalties for such a sin is? Like, be real with it. It's kind of funny, Peter Thiel. I look at Peter Thiel, and he's always so concerned about the Antichrist. But Peter Thiel, if you're part of these circles, and you're afraid of the Antichrist, I don't think you're the Antichrist. I think you're just a fucking degenerate, cocaine snorting retard. But if you're a part of these circles, like, what do you think you are? What do you think God will do with you? You're afraid of the Antichrist, my man, but, like that other person said, you try to create an entire surveillance apparatus to stop him? You're building his kingdom, my man. But neither here nor there. But, like, how you're going to claim to be on the side of God when you're a part of a ruling class that does shit like this. You spy on people, you cover up for a pedophile ring, and I don't know how else to say it. Do you really think God is on your side, man? That being said, I just don't understand the mental faculties of our current ruling class. I just wish, like I said, I hate my ruling class. I'll tell you why. I'm going to go in a little bit of a spiel why I hate the American ruling class. And it's not because I care about the ideals of communism at this point. Yes, and I identify as a communist. But I can't stand the Anglo-American ruling class is because what I hate about them is that they're not even productive. If they would just, if you just got rid of the pedophile shit, okay, assume they weren't pedophiles, okay? And assume they were just normal, like, rich pigs. They were just, existing, they're wealthy or whatever, right? I've said before, I don't have a problem if somebody is wealthy. I don't have a problem if somebody inherited their wealth. I don't care if they're wealthy inherently or if they didn't work for their wealth, okay? My problem has always been with the ruling class is that if I, myself, or the vast majority of other people cannot, make their own way in American civilization to earn through hard work, a modicum of a decent standard of living, I have a problem with you. And it happens to be you standing in the way, we're going to have a problem. Okay? And so when you create this giant surveillance apparatus, you strip away all these social programs that were benefit to the American people, and you can talk about migrants or whatever. I don't really give a fuck and use that as scapegoat, but you know, you can do your deportations, and you're going to realize the American people are still going to be mad at you. But the thing is that, you know, you get in the way of a common prosperity through hard work because you want to basically make everybody a perpetual renter, and you want to set up a giant surveillance state where nobody owns anything and everyone rents everything and nobody has any privacy, right? Again, we have problems. I don't care about ideological communism. I just hate the World Economic Forum is because at the end of the day, like most Americans, I would like to own my own place and I would like to be left the fuck alone. And, you know, if socialism can achieve that, where I can live a common prosperity and be left alone, I'm okay with that. If capitalism achieves that, I'd be fine with that too. You know, I know there are libertarians who watch this channel, and, you know, they've criticized me saying, why don't I just be a libertarian that's anti-monopoly? And I don't have a problem with them, is because we at least are criticizing the same issue that we are both kind of facing, okay? You know, I don't even have a problem with, like, you know, markets to some degree, as long as they're beneficial to civilization, okay? I'm for what I think is best for civilization in a sort of sense. And so when, you know, you try to do this sorts of stuff, yeah, we're going to have a problem. My problem is because the fact is that if I cannot just have a pathway, and I'm not trying to ask for entitled shit. I'm not like other leftists where I'm going to sit here and say, oh, I deserve X, Y, and Z, and you know, you have to give it to me for free. No, I'm very much like, you have to earn it to some degree, okay? But if there is no path for somebody to work hard to make a moderately decent standard of living in this country, because, you know, there is a ruling class that is so greedy that they thought if they bought up all the homes and make everybody rent and then set up a giant surveillance state to spy on everybody who disagrees with them, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit fucking pissed. Okay? I'm not the kind of person to really overly cower on things, because I'm a very opinionated person, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say. So, that being said, right? You know, again, everything the ruling class is doing thus far is not surprising me. They're doing everything I said they were going to do, and probably a little bit extra. I'm not surprised, I'm just disappointed, is because I hate being right. I really hate being right about people who do exactly what I said they were going to do, and they told me it wasn't going to happen, and then it happened, and then they pretend I never said it. Is what it is. You know, the United States is falling behind. That's the one thing I hate the most, is because the fact is, now that you've denied what I've said in all my previous videos about what was going to happen, right? Even more time has gone to pass. I'm not particularly angry at the Chinese for bettering their civilization. I'm angry at my parasitic ruling class, is because we could have what the Chinese are doing, but if we had invested into our own people, okay? The thing is that, like, you know, it's always amazing to me that capitalists will love to talk about the jackass who invented, like, the cure for cancer in their garage and started a multi-million-dollar company, okay? In the same economy as of today, where the average house price literally hit $500,000, and so who's doing like garage tinkering to build the next cure for cancer? You're telling me you want to beat China in terms of technology, but you can't even allow your engineers to own their own garages to actually afford it? I'm going to give you a little bit of a spiel, okay? It's because I remember when I was applying for a job a couple of years ago, and I said, you know, when I was first starting up, I would like, I would like to have a salary that would afford me a 2-bedroom apartment. Not even a house, just a 2-bedroom apartment. You know what the HR department said? It said, what do you need a 2-bedroom apartment for? You're a single person. This was before I, you know, was dating or even, you know, got married. But the thing is they're like, what do you need that for? And I said, well, I have an electronics lab, and I would like to be able to put my electronics, my soldering iron, my oscilloscope, my function generator, and my logic analyzer, you know, all in a second room besides my bedroom, is because I don't like having electronics in my room. And I just kind of sat there. The audacity of a talentless sack of shit like HR lecturing me, who wants to actually build things, about what do I need a second bedroom for, okay? I'm going to go on a short rant about HRs, because this country, America, has turned into a country that values talentless sacks of shit who have EQ over IQ, whose only specialty is gaslighting people rather than actually producing value for civilization, and then turns around and wonders why we're falling behind to China. Well, I'll tell you why, okay? Is because even at my own current company, right now, the HR department has remote work perms. Do they give remote work perms to their engineers? No. So, in a twisted sorts of sense, because, like, we all saw the Coldplay concert where the CEO was, you know, intermingling with the head of HR, okay? This is the relationship of American capitalism, which is why another reason I despise the American ruling class. Okay, is because, you know, the corporations and these CEOs don't select for talent or capability, they select for loyalty. Okay, and so HR is basically just the political commissars of companies, and their only job is to basically protect the company, and understandably so. If you're a capitalist, that's totally fine. I get that. That's perfectly within the logic of capitalism. Now, obviously, as a communist who's incredibly pro-worker, I despise your ass, and I would love to say things that I can't say on this channel because it'd probably get me deleted. But that being said, right, I can functionally understand this sort of stuff. But now there are consequences to that, is because the fact is, when your talentless sack of shit gaslighting department has to question somebody like me why I need a second bedroom to build things, you know, you can't turn around and wonder why, you know, this civilization is falling behind to the Chinese when they actually invest in their engineers. They produce more engineers per capita, not just on absolute, because China is a 5 times bigger country than us. They produce more STEM people per capita than the United States. So not only is it more than 5 times as many STEM people than us, it's more than that, because if we're going to do by capita, you know, that's how it would translate into real concrete numbers. Okay? And it's amazing that, you know, that we'll put all this money into culturally and also societally, even on the political right, into, oh, EQ and soft skills are more important than hard skills. Okay. Well, you know what? You're right. Your culture did value it. Now that's why it's falling behind the Chinese, and maybe you deserve it. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, you know, all you got to do is change the culture. Okay? I'm actually very pro remote work, honestly. But the thing is, the fact that you have the incentives to give, you know, your political commissars who produce no value for civilization, you know, these privileges, but not the people who actually produce value. That is why you're going to lose to the Chinese. And I know you're not going to do this, is because, again, we live in the capitalist mode of production, and the Anglo-American ruling class, you know, the people that they are, they're going to do this. So yes, this is why I hate the American ruling class. Not even because I'm jealous of their success just because I'm a communist. No, I don't care if they're successful. I don't care if they're wealthy. I consider them an active detriment to my country to such a parasitic degree that their lying and gaslighting is only making the situation for my country even worse. That's why I hate them. I hate them explicitly for that singular reason, that we are controlled by a cartel of gaslighters, liars, and deceivers who are trying to destroy our privacy, take away our rights to property ownership, all because the fact is they want to cover up the fact that they diddle kids in their fucking mansions. That's why. Because I consider them to be an actual living fucking tumor on American society that quite literally produces no value for us other than to basically dictate things and control things from behind. I got in an argument with somebody because one person was asking me, why do I hate rich people more than I hate poor people? And I said, well, I'll tell you why, okay? A poor person, you know, if they're like doing something I don't like, and I don't know, maybe they're defecating in your yard or something like that, or on your car, or just, you know, doing criminal shit, right? Okay, I can call the cops on them, and I can put them out of my immediate vicinity, okay? You know, that's kind of thing. A poor person, you can walk away from. You can, you know, you just leave, okay? And they have no bearing on your life whatsoever, okay? The reason I hate rich people so much, okay? And it's not even a jealousy point at this point, is that, you know, unlike the poor person, a rich person will take over your government, influence and infiltrate every level of government to basically make it beneficial for its own existence at the expense of you. Gaslight you about it, use the mainstream media to lie about it, and then, you know, at the same time, you know, drain all of civilization at your behest, and then, you know, you can't do anything about it, okay? There's a level of influence of being able to walk away from a poor person that's giving you trouble, as opposed to a rich person who can basically take over a society and basically dictate like what they get and take from you. That's why I hate rich people more than poor people. That's why I hate the Anglo-American ruling class. Not out of a misplaced sense of jealousy. I'm not jealous of talentless parasites who have nothing of value to civilization. I just genuinely hate them is because they're in the way of any form of prosperity for my civilization. That's literally about it. With that being said, this long-ass video is long enough on its own. I'll probably add some music to it, and I'm probably going to close it off because I covered a lot of things in this video. All in all, right, you know, the only reason I came back a little bit spicier in this video is not because I'm in a rather unhappy position. I'm in a fairly good position for myself, is because I get to kind of be left alone to my own devices, and I get to enjoy my own kind of thing and just kind of, you know, just do my own thing, right? I kind of have that privilege, you know, where I'm at in life, okay? And so the thing is, I'll give my 2 cents here and there, but I'm not overly invested in this. I'm too small to really care about this sorts of stuff. Because the thing is, it's like, I can't start a political movement. Let's be real here. There's like maybe 526 subs to this channel right this moment. Okay? And, you know, great for you guys subbing to the channel. It's a big time help and stuff like this. But, you know, the goal of this channel has never been to be my main income, nor am I going here to, like, start a political movement. I'm just a guy who gives my 2 cents on the internet, and anybody is free to take it or leave it. And so, you know, the thing is there's much more capable people than myself that is going to lead a movement. Okay, and here's how it's going to go. I'm going to upload this video because I haven't uploaded about a month and a half. What's going to happen is I'm going to upload. People are going to notice it. Some people are going to forget they even subscribe to me. They're going to unsubscribe, and, you know, there might be a couple of people, depending on whether or not this gets picked up by the algorithm, who are going to watch this video, okay? You know, that's how it usually typically goes if I haven't uploaded a video in a long time, which this is going to be one of those things. I'm going to be honest, right? You know, like I said, I professionally work as an engineer. The only time I would accept ever being a politician as a role, which I hate politicians and I hate gaslighters and I hate sociologists, right, is if, like, quite literally, you know, the bridge was already there for me to cross it and I had a decent amount of following, right? But other than that, that's not my goal here. The only thing I hate is that, like, I have no political power to change the situation of what I see, you know, happening right now. That's the only thing that irritates me. So, that being said, I'm just another idiot on the internet with his 2 cents, and you're free to take it or leave it. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close off the videos because this video is long enough on its own right, and so, like, I'm kind of curious to see, like, whether or not this is even going to be picked up for the algorithms, because it's really a hit or a miss, you know, the people who actually watch this video. But that's my 2 cents. Y'all have a good night, and take it easy.